Shadows over Berlin. Under an unforgiving December sky, when the moon hung low and seemed intent on imprinting its silvered secrets upon every ancient stone, Berlin's storied heart writhed under the weight of history. In the forsaken quarters of Mitte, where an abandoned museum, its grandeur long decimated by time and conflict, stood as a testament to a past both illustrious and tragic, a scream rent the stillness. That cry, sharp as shattered glass and as anguished as a dying note in a requiem, resounded down narrow cobblestone alleys and ricocheted off the faded remnants of magnificence. In a gallery chamber where once the eloquence of art declared the city's triumphant spirit, there now lay the body of Dr. Friedrich Baum. His eyes, wide and glassy, mirrored the terror of profound revelation, as if he had glimpsed a dimension of truth too monstrous for mortal hearts. Scattered around him were fragments of his life's passion, rare manuscripts, splintered relics, and even a broken frame that once cradled a masterpiece. Almost ritualistically placed at his side was a crumpled note bearing the inscription, Die Wahrheit liegt am Schatten. The truth lies in the shadow. The message pulsed like a heartbeat through the darkness. A cipher that beckoned to secret societies and whispered of conspiracies that spanned from the imperial courts to underground resistance networks. As storm clouds gathered in ominous congress above the warped skyline, the museum's ruins became a living palimpsest of forgotten histories. Every charred beam and weathered fresco seemed to imbue the night with the memories of lovers, soldiers, and scholars all interwoven into a tapestry of grief and defiance. In the silence that ensued after the final scream faded, the entire scene took on a quality of living memory, a tableau where sorrow and scandal merged, and where every shadow on the wall suggested that the past, with all its forbidden truths, was determined to resurface. The mystery of Dr. Baum's demise thus unfurled as more than a mere crime scene. It was an invocation from a time when secrets ruled and redemption was paid for in blood and haunted dreams. In the distance, the faint pulse of Berlin's modern life continued without pause, yet beneath that veneer of progress lurked remnants of old voices. Windows of adjacent buildings flickered with the spectral glimmer of memories, and ancient gargoyles overlooked the silent tragedy like eternal sentinels. Every whispered rumor and every flicker of candlelight in a nearby flat seemed to echo that singular message, an oath from an era that refused to be forgotten. Thus, as the city braced for a coming tempest of revelations, the discovery of Dr. Baum's body became a summons, a call to unearth the long-buried sins and secrets that lay hidden in Berlin's shadowed corridors. Chapter 1. The detective's pursuit into the heart of deceit and doubt. At the fragile edge of dawn, with a cold mist swirling through cobbled streets, Detective Elena Mahler emerged onto the scene like a force of nature incarnate. Draped in a worn dark trench coat that billowed with her purposeful stride, she stepped into the museum's remains with eyes that missed nothing. The scene was one of chaos restrained by deliberate design. Manuscripts lay strewn like confetti on ancient stone, and the delicate dust of bygone eras had been disturbed by purposeful, hurried footsteps. Even the subtle imprint of a trailing boot or the faint scent of tobacco, mingled with the metallic tang of spilled secrets, was a clue in this cryptic narrative of murder and mystery. Elena knelt beside Dr. Baum's lifeless form, studying the contorted angles of a fallen scholar whose final moments had been marked by terror. In her mind, she replayed the scene as if it were a silent film, each detail a frame loaded with significance. Was his fear rooted in the revelation of a historical truth too dangerous for society, or did it signal a personal betrayal? Each sensory detail, the scattered relics, the residue of ink that bled into the folds of ancient parchment, the quiet hiss of the wind through broken windows, became the language of a story waiting to be deciphered. As her heart pounded in quiet fury, memories of old cases, of puzzles solved in the midst of despair, intermingled with her own private regrets, forging an unbreakable resolve to expose whoever had orchestrated this act. Throughout that dismal morning, Elena roamed the scene like an investigator in a labyrinth of both physical and emotional turmoils. She interviewed a host of witnesses, an elderly custodian whose trembling words about ghosts wandering the corridors hinted at something more than superstition, a shocked colleague who murmured of Dr. Baum's last, desperate discovery, an ancient map that he believed could lead to a hidden chamber beneath Berlin. Each interview was punctuated by moments where time itself seemed to pause, the murmur of voices tightening as figures in worn uniforms recalled inexplicable encounters with the unknown. In her constantly scribbled notebook, amid entries scrawled in haste and fervor, Elena chronicled not only the tangible clues but also the intangible scars of the city, a collection of half-remembered myths and whispered warnings that made her pulse quicken with apprehension. As the broken light of dawn filtered through grimy skylights, Elena sensed with an almost telepathic intuition that this murder was not born of a fleeting quarrel, but was the culminating act of an ancient vendetta. Every deliberate disruption of the dust, every artifact repositioned with meticulous care, suggested that a mastermind of antiquity was at work, one who matched scholarly cunning with a thirst for dark retribution. With each detail recorded, her inner monologue expanded. The coded inscription, the subtle interplay of shadows and light, the faint scent reminiscent of an era lost to time. All were threads in a vast tapestry woven by the unforgiving hand of history. Determined to find answers, Elena vowed that she would navigate this labyrinth of deceit with the unyielding persistence of both a seasoned detective and a haunted soul seeking redemption for her own past missteps. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Archives, Unraveling the Threads of Time. Leaving behind the grim sight of the museum, Elena's quest for truth carried her deep into the hallowed sanctum of Berlin's ancient archives, a place where the silence was filled with the murmurs of long-forgotten voices, and the faded pages of manuscripts held secrets that had survived the ravages of time. The vast conservatory of knowledge was dimly lit by an array of antique lamps, their flickering glows illuminating rows upon rows of brittle documents, leather-bound tomes, and yellowed newspapers that chronicled centuries of human endeavor, triumph, and despair. In this labyrinth of history, Elena soon encountered Professor Klaus Reinhardt, a man whose very presence seemed woven from the fabric of time itself. With a calm intensity, Klaus greeted her as though he had long foreseen her coming. In a small study lined with overflowing shelves and adorned with relics that whispered of epic conquests and shattered empires, he unveiled an artifact of sublime mystery. The manuscript, discovered in the wake of Dr. Baum's murder, was no ordinary document. Its pages were inscribed with cryptic symbols and obscure references that hinted at an intricate map of underground passageways and hidden treasures, accumulated throughout the eras of the Third Reich and beyond. For hours that stretched like moments of intense meditation, Elena and Klaus pored over the fragile pages of the manuscript. Their conversation meandered through the corridors of history, discussing coded languages once used by secret societies, the clandestine movements of art smugglers during regimes of terror, and the painstaking efforts to safeguard forbidden relics. Klaus recounted, in a measured tone, how the manuscript had belonged to a shadow network, a collective of thinkers and warriors who fought silently, using art and symbolism as their arms against oppression. Each faded character, each meticulously drawn line, ignited in Elena a sense of profound urgency. Every scrap of ink had the potential to topple the carefully constructed narratives of power that had sustained across generations. As they labored through the evening, surrounded by the aroma of antiquity and the soft rustle of paper turning, the atmosphere inside the archive deepened into something almost sacred. It was as though the room itself were alive with the energy of all those who had risked everything to document truth, regardless of the cost. Elena's mind raced as she drew parallels between the manuscript's cryptic clues and the shadows of modern Berlin. Each symbol became a portent, each reference a call to reclaim a history that had been shrouded in lies. The manuscript's haunting refrain of Die Wahrheit liegt am Schatten echoed incessantly, interlacing with the creak of ancient floorboards and the distant hum of the city beyond. In that space, time lost its linearity, and the past and present merged into a single continuum, a fluid narrative where every discovery became a stepping stone to a revelation that could shatter illusions and free long-concealed truths. In the soft embrace of the archive's hallowed silence, Elena realized that her journey was not merely one of intellectual pursuit but of existential significance. Every document, every handwritten note, was a testament to the resilient spirit of those who had chosen truth over conformity. Klaus, whose eyes now shone with the fire of conviction, urged her to keep pressing forward, for the revelation of such buried truths would soon demand a reckoning, a complete re-examination of Berlin's cultural identity and its moral compass. And so, the endless pages of history continued to whisper, carrying with them the weight of all that had been lost and the indomitable hope that, one day, every secret might be brought to light. Chapter 3. The Underbelly of Berlin, where light fades and shadows dance. Beneath Berlin's glossy veneer of bustling boulevards and sleek modernity lay a pulsating underworld, a realm untouched by the sanitized rhythms of contemporary life, where time itself seemed to recoil into twilight. Here, in dilapidated warehouses and along rain-soaked backstreets illuminated only by the neon glow of flickering signs, Elena discovered a side of Berlin that few ever witnessed. A hidden network where mistrust, longing, and the raw essence of survival coexisted in an elaborate dance of shadows. In the harsh luminescence of underground tunnels and forgotten stations, Elena encountered those who had long abandoned the safety of daylight. Among them was Mara Voigt, a woman whose dark eyes held countless untold stories and whose every movement was as enigmatic as a half-remembered dream. Once a high-ranking intelligence officer, Mara now moved effortlessly in the margins where law, power, and secrecy blurred. In a dimly lit nightclub tucked away in the labyrinth of Kreuzberg, where the walls dripped with the echoes of jazz and whispered confessions, Mara revealed the existence of a secretive ring dedicated to retrieving relics that held the power to alter destiny. Conversations over bitter, potent coffee in shadowed corners of rundown cafes unfolded like pieces in a complex mosaic. Mara recounted the clandestine auctions held in abandoned warehouses, the midnight rendezvous at secluded factories along the Spree, and the network of informants who communicated in a language of half-truths and coded glances. Every whisper in those murky environs was imbued with the profound melancholy of lives lived on the edge, of those who willingly risked everything to reclaim memories and artifacts that defied modern corporate neutrality. Elena listened intently as Mara recounted not only the logistical details of stolen relics and secret transactions, but also her personal grievances. Love lost, betrayals endured, and the bitter aftertaste of promises made in the dark. Together, amidst a world that thrived under the cloak of anonymity and decay, Elena and Mara navigated the intricate labyrinth of Berlin's underbelly. Each rendezvous in a cramped basement or a dilapidated storefront served as a revelation, a glimpse into a subculture where trust was scarce and every moment of intimacy was balanced by the dread of inevitable betrayal. Elena began to map out this parallel world in her mind. Its winding alleys, its hidden corridors, the transient faces filled with both determination and despair. Every encounter added layers not just to the case at hand, but to her understanding of a city that had long since learned to conceal its true self beneath a polished surface. As nights passed and the chill of autumn deepened, the underbelly revealed itself to be a living testament to both the resilience and vulnerability of its inhabitants. Side by side with Mara, Elena witnessed clandestine meetings where fragile alliances were forged in moments of silence and glimpsed the subtle interplay between historical obsession and modern ambition. There were nights when the distant sound of sirens punctuated the soft rhythm of whispered secrets, and other times when the quiet of abandoned corridors was broken only by the solitary hum of a dying light. In every such moment, Berlin bared its raw soul, the scars of past wars, the quiet rebellion of its youth, and a collective memory that refused to vanish without a fight. Chapter 4. The Secret of the Forbidden Vault, a Labyrinth of Forgotten Realms. Guided by the mounting evidence and the relentless pulse of destiny, Elena's investigation was drawn to a relic of Berlin's oppressive history, a defunct East German state bank whose very walls groaned under the weight of secrets. Its imposing facade, marred by decay and the residue of brutal regimes, loomed like a forbidden monument against the city's skyline. Here, in this sepulchral edifice where whispers of tyranny and clandestine power still lurked, lay the rumored Forbidden Vault, a citadel of long-concealed documents and artifacts that had the potential to redefine the nation's narrative. Under the cover of darkness, with Mara's reluctant but steadfast guidance, Elena embarked on a perilous nocturnal expedition. The interior of the bank was a labyrinth of cold corridors, dust-laden offices, and hidden rooms where the past had been stowed away like contraband. Every step brought her closer to not only physical danger but to the deeper metaphors of time, the layers of bureaucracy, repression, and revisionism that had come to define the city's post-war identity. Behind a cleverly masked panel in a marble corridor lay the vault, a steel-wrought gateway that guarded not only treasures but the sins of those who had lain them to rest. Within this sanctum, the air was heavy with the musk of aged paper and the distant echo of once echoing conversations. Rows upon rows of ledgers, meticulously maintained and shockingly detailed, chronicled a history of transactions, exchanges of art, betrayal, and power that had been carefully excised from public memory. Ancient coins with intricate engravings rested alongside personal mementos. Sepia-toned photographs, handwritten letters saturated with longing and regret, and documents that revealed the clandestine movements of shadowy collectors. Each artifact was a bridge between eras. Every crease in a faded letter whispered of love lost and ideals betrayed. Yet, as Elena painstakingly documented the trove of evidence, fate intervened in a maelstrom of chaos. In the deathly stillness of the vault, the sudden clatter of boots and half-heard commands shattered the fragile peace. In an explosion of panic and adrenaline, masked figures burst forth, agents of those determined to keep the past buried at any cost. In a desperate ballet of evasion and defiance, Elena found herself locked in a struggle where every second stretched into an eternity of terror. Gunfire ricocheted off stone, and the acrid smell of ozone mingled with the dust of forgotten secrets. Through cunning, sheer determination, and the guidance of a hidden exit, she escaped. Yet, even in her flight through a tangled web of corridors and secret passages, the images of that night, each echo and each bloodied scrap of evidence, etched themselves indelibly into her soul. Emerging into the cold night, Elena was irrevocably changed. The vault had revealed more than artifacts. It had exposed the raw, underlying pulse of conspiracy, a network that spanned decades and whose tendrils reached into the heart of modern power. As she caught her breath in the rain-soaked dark, every fragment of evidence burned with a fierce urgency. This was not merely a cache of relics, but an altar upon which the sacrifices of the past had been offered, a site from which the ghosts of betrayal and ambition could still rise to disrupt the present. The Forbidden Vault had become not only a repository for long-suppressed history but a clarion call, for retribution, for remembrance, and ultimately, for the reckoning of those who would do anything to keep the truth veiled. Chapter 5. Confronting Shadows, When Ideals Clash in a Crucible of Truth. By the time Elena reconvened with her unlikely coalition of truth-seekers in the vibrant heart of modern Berlin, the city itself seemed to hold its breath, as if preparing for an inevitable collision of light and darkness. In a repurposed Jugendstil cafe, its stained glass windows and ornate woodwork serving as silent witnesses to countless untold tales, a clandestine conclave gathered. This was a council forged not merely from necessity, but by fate and personal histories that had entwined like the threads of a tapestry woven in secrecy and desire. The attendees were as diverse as the secrets they carried. Professor Klaus Reinhardt, with his scholarly gravitas and eyes reflecting the sorrow of countless lost centuries, spoke in measured tones of historical imperatives and the moral duty to preserve every shred of truth, even if it was brutally inconvenient. Mara Voigt, whose past was smeared with both the brilliance and betrayal of clandestine operations, countered with vivid accounts of the consequences of unbridled power. A retired intelligence operative, rugged and taciturn, recounted with piercing clarity the days when truths were traded like currency and every word weighed as gold. And Victor, representing a formidable art foundation known for its finely veiled ambition, offered a perspective that balanced the scales of idealism and self-interest. Within the warm glow of the cafe's vintage lamps, voices resonated in earnest debate. Each word was laden with personal pain. Klaus revealed heart-wrenching stories of libraries razed and monuments lost. Mara confessed the inner turmoil of every secret mission that had cost her more than she could count. Victor's measured reflections spoke of the corruptive allure of power, where art became both a sanctuary and a weapon. In the midst of these revelations, Elena's presence was both grounding and galvanizing. With a voice that bridged the chasm between hard evidence and raw emotion, she declared, "The truth we seek lies in the illumination of every covert relic, every suppressed document. We cannot allow the narrative of our past to be hijacked by those who cloak themselves in the garb of righteousness while perpetuating injustice in silence." Her words sparked a fervor in that charged room, an almost tangible shift where anger surrendered to a mutual determination to reclaim the voice of the people and the forgotten souls of history. Under the watchful eyes of intricately carved angels in the stained glass windows, the council reached a solemn accord. They pledged, with trembling hearts and unwavering resolve, their commitment to unveil the hidden cabal, to dismantle its stranglehold on Berlin's cultural narrative, and to return the legacy of truth to a people starved for accountability. That night, as the discussion meandered into the early hours and personal confessions supplanted formal posturing, the atmosphere thickened with the shared weight of responsibility. Stories of once glorious visions thwarted by modern greed, of pains absorbed silently over years of compromise, and of a passion for beauty that refused to be silenced, all converged to form a mosaic of determination. The meeting was not simply an exchange of words, but a transformative ritual, an act of collective catharsis that carried the electric promise of revolution, a quiet, moral uprising aimed at restoring not just stolen relics, but the very soul of a city marred by its lost truths. Chapter 6. The Unraveling. In the depths of darkness, light persists. The final confrontation unfolded on a night when rain cascaded over Berlin like a relentless dirge, turning streets into shimmering mirrors of past sorrows and future hopes. At the edge of the city, amidst a forgotten villa crowned by creeping ivy and time-worn facades, Elena and her small band of allies closed in on the epicenter of the conspiracy. This villa, an imposing relic of elegance and subterfuge, had long been a sanctuary for those who traded in secrets and ruled in the shadows. Its corridors, once echoing with civilized laughter, now resonated with the distant memory of betrayals and the grim anticipation of retribution. Inside, the villa revealed a labyrinth of hidden chambers, narrow passageways, and secret tunnels, all meticulously engineered to safeguard the dark machinations of a bygone era. It was here that Elena finally came face to face with the architect of this insidious network, a man whose presence seemed to draw upon the ancestral ghosts of a once powerful dynasty. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit that belied the venom of his convictions, the mastermind declared with chilling calm that restoring a lost national glory demanded sacrifices too formidable for common morality. His voice, oscillating between cold calculation and fervent patriotism, filled the echoing halls with a dissonant hymn of delusion and despair. In the claustrophobic embrace of underground tunnels carved out during a time of war, Elena and her trusted comrades advanced with the weight of destiny upon their shoulders. Every step was laden with symbolism. The damp walls dripped with condensation that mimicked tears of the past, while the echo of their footsteps served as the metronome for an inevitable reckoning. As the final standoff erupted in a tempest of whispered commands and muffled gunfire, the very air became charged with conflicts that spanned generations. In a series of heart-stopping moments, alliances were tested, old loyalties challenged, and the conspirator's veneer of authority began to crumble. Documents fell from his grasp. Pages that detailed intricate plots, covert transactions, and illicit pacts that had manipulated the city's destiny. In the cacophony of chaos, Elena's determination shone like a beacon. With every desperate breath, she fought not only for justice in that rain-drenched corridor, but for the soul of Berlin itself. In those interminable minutes of struggle, where life and legacy entwined in a volatile dance, the conspirator's dark dreams were exposed, his carefully constructed empire of deceit crumbling under the relentless force of truth. The battle was not only physical, it was a moral confrontation, a collision between the inescapable pull of a suppressed past and the burgeoning promise of a future unburdened by its specters. As the first light of dawn broke through the storm clouds, casting golden rays upon battered stone and tear-streaked faces alike, the final act of defiance was complete. Elena, bloodied yet unbowed, gathered the remnants of evidence that would form the foundation of Berlin's cathartic rebirth. The conspirator, now disarmed both physically and metaphorically, was led away, a symbol of the collapse of old regimes and the rise of an era founded on transparency. Outside the villa, amid the scent of rain and renewal, the city itself seemed to exhale a long-held breath. Every soul, every stone, every memory of past torment now resonated with the unyielding promise that even the deepest darkness could be vanquished by the resolute light of truth. Epilogue. In the wake of the tumultuous night that had forever altered the tapestry of Berlin, the city slowly began to heal. What had once been an oppressive shroud of secrecy and pain gave way to a slow, almost imperceptible metamorphosis, a rebirth steeped in cautious optimism and collective remembrance. Public spaces transformed almost overnight. Monuments that had stood as silent observers of tyranny were refurbished to honor a more inclusive truth. Museums reopened their doors with exhibits unafraid to tell controversial stories, and gatherings of citizens turned into forums of intense dialogue and spirited reconciliation. Detective Elena Mahler, now celebrated as both a relentless investigator and a guardian of the city's moral soul, began to share her experiences in carefully penned memoirs that wove together personal vulnerability and unyielding duty. In intimate interviews and public speeches lit by the soft glow of understanding, she recounted not merely the grisly events of that fateful night, but the profound lessons learned about the resilience of truth and the potency of collective courage. Her writings, filled with subtle anecdotes, philosophical reflections, and an unwavering clarity of purpose, became a touchstone for those who sought redemption from the shadows of history. Meanwhile, the clandestine council that had convened in that Jugendstil Café gradually emerged from secrecy to form an official body dedicated to preserving Berlin's true heritage. Professor Klaus Reinhardt established the Licht am Schatten Institute, a research center committed to unraveling hidden histories and presenting them in a manner that is both educated and empowered. Mara Voigt, in a rare but poignant act of public candor, addressed the city's fears of manipulation by detailing the covert networks that had used art as a weapon, leaving behind a legacy that was transformed into a promise of transparency. Victor's Art Foundation realigned its mission entirely, repurposing its resources to foster community-driven projects that celebrated genuine cultural narratives over sanitized myths. In public squares, beneath the freshly restored facades of old buildings, and amid gardens blooming with new life, Berlin's citizens began to reclaim their history. Festivals, memorials, and academic colloquiums turned into celebrations of a shared past, one that acknowledged pain but also highlighted the transformative power of truth and reconciliation. Gradually, every relic, every document once locked away in forbidden vaults, was woven into a public tapestry of remembrance, a mural of collective memory where every scar glowed softly with the light of hope. And as Berlin rose anew each day, its citizens carried forward the quiet determination that the lessons of history would not be lost. Elena's final vow, that every dark secret, every ghost of betrayal, would ultimately guide the city toward an eternal dawn of truth, echoed in every street corner, every monument, and every whispered conversation in twilight cafes. In the gentle cadence of urban life, where modernity danced with ancient resilience, Berlin found at last a way to honor its tumultuous past while embracing the promise of a future shaped by accountability, understanding, and unwavering justice.